Hello and welcome to Look for the Light, a podcast where we dive into the world of The Last of Us. I'm your host, Stuart Trainer, and I'm joined, as always, by someone who would probably whistle back at the Seraphites. It's Jess Sterling. Jess, how are you doing?
Oh no! You know what? They would get me if they did like a call and response song.
Like Marco Polo kind of thing, or even
like Camptown Races sing this song, and I would do the doodah doodahs. Like I wouldn't be able to help myself. Yeah, this is definitely true. Yeah,
you've got to do it. Jess, episode 5. We are blitzing through this. Like it feels like we were anticipating this for the longest time, and now it's just flying by. Really, we've only got two episodes left. This is crazy.
I know.
Thoughts, feelings. How did you find this episode generally? Before we kind of really get into it.
Overall, I really liked it. I feel like the decisions they made, we have speculated a lot on like, how are they going to do this particular thing? How are they going to do that? Like, how are they going to get the characters in the right places that we know they need to be in? Mm-hmm. And I think that the moves they made this episode were right in line and made a lot of sense. There wasn't a whole lot that I would quibble with. I actually really enjoyed the vast majority of this episode and what it sets us up for. And oh my God, the Ellie and Nora scene, I cannot wait to talk about it, because that is one, Stuart, that I think we both can agree is like, we've been waiting for this particular scene, and to see it play out. Yeah, I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, there were shots in trailers, and we kind of knew that there was an inkling that they were going to do everything as faithfully as they did. But I think after watching it, I was so pleasantly surprised. I think there are, for me, still a couple of quibbles, but that's mostly on things that they've taken up to this point. And I think that this episode, as it stands in its own, developed things really kind of well, and is setting us up. And I think like we're finally getting to the point where I think they wanted us to get to in terms of understanding positions and where they're moving the chess pieces, so that we know how it's going to play out for the remainder of the season, and also for the next season as well, because that is coming up, and we have to make sure that it's setting that up effectively and kind of well. So I like how things are coming together, but still a little things to kind of like quibble through. So we'll certainly get into it. But before we dive into things in depth, if you're new here, do make sure to subscribe to Look for the Light wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like a more visual experience with like the quotes and everything, we're also on YouTube at Look for the Light Pod there as well. And also, we'd love to hear what you think, what your thoughts are on the episode, what theories you might have, or any other feedback. So do reach out to us at lookforthelightpodcast@gmail.com. But if you are new here, don't worry. We won't spoil anything ahead or anything from the games. We're only going to focus on this week's episode, and like for the most part. And if you're looking for the deeper kind of context for the remainder of the season, for what's to come, game comparisons and things, stick around to the end, and we'll have our spoiler section, which will be suitably flagged up for you there, so you don't need to worry. But unless there's anything else, Jess, should we dive in?
Let's do it.
He said it's in the air. He said it's in the air. See, listen. I knew it wasn't an event, or we would have all been infected weeks ago. So I scrambled my other team, and we locked the only door to B2, and we locked the only door to B1. And we did what Leon said. We sealed them in.
Something's in the air. We cold open to Hanrahan, new character introduced to us last week, and we discover that not everything is too peachy within the Seattle hospital. The lower levels have been guarded and have been sealed for quite a bleak reason, and we come to discover that the officer in charge of it, Sergeant Park, sent in their son to go and deal with this and had to seal it off. As cold opens go, I mean, there have been some really bleak ones in this show's history. We've got like the Jakarta flashback from like season 1. Obviously, like kind of the first episode's cold open, like with really the longest cold open ever, really. That whole thing as well. I don't know how they keep doing it. They keep making it more and more harrowing each and every time. It's like they love just
Yeah.
doing it, right?
Yeah, this was a really great cold open, specifically because I mean, obviously, first thing off the bat, my theory of Hanrahan being the prophet seems to be, completely dashed. That's not a thing. That's not happening. But I know we were a bit critical of the decision of like when they were introducing the spores rather than having, the Ellie and Dina kind of conversation around Ellie's immunity involving the spores.
Mhm.
I all my fears were alleviated with this scene because this was so interesting. Like, not only are they setting up the spores for later on in this very episode, that this is the benefit of an adaptation is you can have these characters that we're not necessarily ever going to play as in the video game get to appear and give us information. And yeah, to see that Sergeant Park has, her son is the one who's down in these lower levels and, gets infected, even though there aren't any infected down there. They've now discovered that this is airborne and they
Mhm.
have to make the decision to quarantine those people, to completely shut down those levels. And yeah, of course, you are going to compare this to what Joel did, right? Because it's Joel makes the decision to kill every single person to save Ellie. And Park makes the exact opposite decision, which is to sacrifice her son for the rest of the population, for the rest of the people that are in this building. And the only like tiny thing, Stuart, that was frustrating for me at least, I don't think it was made clear at all when this happens, when this scene takes place, because later, obviously, we're going to see her son Leon. And
Mhm.
it looks like he's been there for a while, but I feel
Yep.
like it would have been helpful for them to give us some sort of a bearing on like when we are in time, considering that there's precedent that they do that in a lot of other episodes of like 11 years earlier, Seattle Day 1, Seattle Day 2. It would have been helpful here, I think.
I like to think that that is intentional though, because
Mm,
like you say, that they've done it plenty of times beforehand, and they have like set like X amount of years before, and where they really kind of framed everything as when it happens. By not having it be like that, that was an alarm bell for me because I was like, I feel like I should be paying attention to this more so,
yes.
and I should be considering when this is taking place, particularly because if you think about it, the evolution of the spores, like it wasn't like they walked in and immediately they could see spores. I think it's probably
Mhm.
something that was emerging. So I don't think it was probably as prevalent as the spores that we saw, which makes me think that it was quite some time ago and that it's evolved and it's grown and he's
Yeah.
potentially been down there for a long, long time, which makes it even more harrowing. But I think it does lend some credence to your theory because if it
Oh,
has been a long time, maybe something like this, maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe there is a departure between like Hanrahan and Isaac's like thought process. Maybe it's
yeah.
Hanrahan has a
Huh.
rejection of like, well, medicine still isn't saving us at this point. Like hospitals are getting overrun. Maybe we have to depart and get away from like places where you shouldn't be, like just basements underground and things like that. I don't know.
Right.
I think there's a possibility that maybe the theory is still out there. I think that
I
there's
would
still a
love
thread of
that.
hope there.
I would love any opportunity to be correct about something. So that would be lovely. I also think it would make some sense because this isn't the first time where we've heard of governments or, people in general trying to limit the spread by just quarantining off people that they think have been infected or entire sections, right? Like, let's take a look at Melanie Linsky last season and what
Hmm.
she had going on in Kansas City, right? Like the rumblings underneath the ground. This isn't dissimilar from that. It's just that the powers that be are made aware that it was the spores that did it. It was an airborne thing that did it. And maybe in previous iterations, it was just they saw an infected, no questions asked, quarantine them off. So I really, really enjoyed this. I also really enjoyed, I'll have to look up the actor's name, but I thought that Sergeant Park specifically did an absolutely incredible job in this scene. Like just her face, just she looked so devastated.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just thought this was like a really great scene. Hedien Park. Oh, last name Park. Look at that. So really, really great opening scene. And if we're gonna get Hanrahan as the prophet and this is like the inciting incident, I'm all for it. Cause at
Pretty
that
cool.
point, right, like you could see going through kind of the mind, hurdles that Hanrahan is going to go through here. It's like, okay, we now know this is airborne. Like there is no hope, right? There is no hope. And what do people turn to in a time where maybe there feels like there's no hope? Sometimes it's religion. Like that could
Hmm.
be a thing we could see happening. So, and
Yeah.
not for nothing, Stuart, but and we'll talk about it. The mural on the wall later where the feel her love kind of looks like Hanrahan. Now I know she's just some white brunette lady, and we, you could say we all do look alike, but I'm just
Hmm.
saying it there's a resemblance.
Yeah, there's certainly is, and I think especially the way in which Hanrahan's like hair is always tied back. Like, yeah,
Yes.
okay, it's kind of official. She's a part of a militia. It kind of would be a bit not formal, but like it's like at least there wouldn't be distractions. Like it's not like you go style your hair if you're part of a militia, right? You're in a kind of like serious role, and so like maybe it does lend itself to a lot of kind of comparisons. And I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm holding on to it. I'm really kind of clinging to it because I
Stuart,
like the idea of it.
you're so right. What person in their right mind would leave their hair down in this sort of a world? Dina.
Well,
Dina.
if it looks as good as Dina's does, then like even in all of the press, they even joke about like how good Dina's hair looks, which
If
is like
I could have
outrageous.
Dina's hair in my, I'm not living. I have a shower. I have product. I have all of the things, and my hair will never look as good as Dina's apocalypse hair
Mhm.
looks.
Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, maybe that's what we need. Maybe an apocalypse is what we need for good hair care. You know,
I just feel like it would get even worse because that's the last thing I'm thinking of.
maybe. But the one of the, like to drill it back to the like the serious tone of like Hanrahan's whole scene here. Even if that profit stuff doesn't really pan out, what I really liked about this is the fact that they are telling you more about Isaac and Isaac's code, because there was the whole thing of like, well, if I was going to be kind of like what was it? If I was going to be killed, then Isaac would be the one to do it. Like it's giving that almost like Ned Stark, like you should be the one
Yeah.
to like carry out the kind of execution, that kind of vibe, which kind of lends itself to okay, well, that's what makes me think that a long period of time has at least passed as well, because it's Isaac being very kind of strict in the sense of duty and honor, I guess, for the
Hmm.
whole situation, and based on how like he's allowing the Salt Lake crew to go out and do what they're doing, I don't necessarily feel that sense of honor here now. So maybe it's changed. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I think there's some clues to maybe like dive into there. I think, and I think they're being very
Especially,
intentional.
yeah, especially because Hanrahan ends up saying we're not going to tell anyone because we still want to be able to use the hospital as like a base.
Hmm.
We still want to be able to use this place, and she knows if we reveal this information, we lose access to this building immediately. We'll be told
Yeah.
not to be here. So, yeah, really interesting decisions coming from Hanrahan and Park, and I just really love what this set up in terms of like we have another person to compare against Joel's decision with Ellie. You have Park
Yes.
and her son. And especially when we see Leon later, it is like heartbreaking to even
Yes.
imagine a world where there is still some sort of consciousness up there.
Hmm.
Like how awful that must feel to live like that. Yeah, really great opening scene though.
Yeah. The comparison with Joel though is something that like because I certainly see it, but I also see like a stark difference in circumstances, because by the looks of it, Leon is older, like he is an adult, and it was with consent of the
Yeah.
person who went down there. They were like, it was Leon that said seal us off. Like it wasn't a decision that was imposed upon him. He was like, no, I have to do this. And it harkens back to the whole thing of like, well, Marlene said, like, Ellie would do this, and Joel took away the option to even provide that consent. And I think that,
Mhm.
like, again, like, had that circumstance been forced upon Joel, maybe Joel might have acted differently.
Mhm.
It's all about presentation of opportunity and like it's the whole thing of like what is it like the means to commit a crime. It's like means, motive, and opportunity. Take away
Mhm.
the opportunity, and you still have the means and the motive, but you don't have the opportunity, and therefore it might not necessarily happen. And so I think that there's certainly something to kind of like pull away from that. Is that yeah, it's great to have a comparison to what Joel did, but also let's remind ourselves that there's very unique circumstances here, and that
Mhm.
it's not always directly comparable, but also it is very comparable to this because it's happening a lot in this world.
Yeah.
It's really really tough.
Can I help?
No.
Why? Because I'm stupid?
That's not the word I would use.
Really? What word then?
Non-school oriented.
Fuck you, I'm in a school. Let me help.
We then get back to the theatre, and Dina is mapping away like an absolute pro. This was so great to see in the games. Rather than finding a single kind of walkie-talkie like radio, Dina finds a more, I guess, like is it a ham radio setup, like an actual like room dedicated to radio
Right.
operations and broadcasting, and listens in through that, and we get like a almost like a base of operations like room. Whereas this is a bit more walkie-talkie in hand, sketching on a desk kind of situation, which feels I think a bit more realistic in the whole scenario, right?
Certainly, and I love the continuation of Dina being the brains. This
Mhm.
feels so true to not only the game, but like who Dina's character, and it really establishes like why Dina and Ellie are so successful as a couple, because Dina does have the kind of book smarts, right? Like she's always shown this like willingness to learn, right? Like I'm going back to the very first scene we even meet Dina in with Joel, where she wants to learn about the electrical stuff that he's working on. She's curious. Curiosity is always going to be a benefit. And in this, at least in this situation, where now she is triangulating to figure out where everyone is by overhearing their conversations on the radio. Ellie offers to help, but of course, Ellie was never the best student. And so these sorts of things really aren't in her wheelhouse. I love the back and forth with them where Ellie jokes about like having a protractor. Nina's like,
Mhm.
really? So yeah, this is a really great little scene showing not only Dina being incredibly intelligent and resourceful, but also just that like this is something she has that Ellie doesn't.
Mhm.
And again, Dina being the logical one in this pairing, time and time again, Dina is the one who like saves Ellie from putting herself in a really dangerous situation.
Yeah, I think it's so great to like establish the role differences between them, and I also like the fact that it's not just Dina working away while Ellie is doing nothing. Ellie's got power on to the whole thing. Like Ellie's done something quite practical that is
Mhm.
necessary because I mean it's going to be difficult to plan when like the sun goes down, and they also need probably uh, electricity to warm the place. I imagine it's going to be freezing after a certain time. So maybe if there is some central like heating still working in the place, maybe that'll be of use or something like that. But I think it's so funny to get like the non-school orientated line, like which is so true, and Ellie to clap back and be like, "Well, no, I went to school." Like she kind of was forced to, as most people are, but that she did have an education. She'd do it, so she's not entirely dumb. She's just, as Dina kind of points out, not the most academic a person. Like it is going to be the one to rush in and do the kind of like silly stuff. But I think as well, it was really necessary for this is that we're seeing them in a moment of downtime. And it's not something that we're really afforded in the game, despite the game having so much time to play with, because the game goes into much more of a kind of like, well, here's a mission. And much of the time is spent actually mechanically playing as that character. You don't get much downtime. And because if it is, there's no way in which 100% of the time that they spend together is talking about Abby and the pursuit of Abby and the pursuit of this crew and our doom and gloom and oh, I miss Joel and everything like that. There are gonna be moments of brevity, and there are gonna be moments where they don't talk about the severity of the situation, where they have to joke. I get the sense that
Mhm.
there's more gallows humor as well with the kind of these two, in that the absurdity of what they're doing, and two of them are goofballs anyway. We've seen it from like episode 1 of this season, is that their dynamic
Mhm.
together is
Yeah,
all established
barbecue.
on joking. Exactly. And so that's not going to go away just because something horrific happens. They're still who they are. And I think that unfairly, this kind of gets lumped into this ongoing, and I think valid in some areas, criticism of Ellie's, I guess, portrayal of how she's handling this mission, this grief, and how it's channeling. And this doesn't lend well to that narrative. But I also think it's essential to portray characters being complex and like of
Right.
having. It's possible to contain a multitude of emotions. You don't have to always be grieving to be grieving, if you get
Right.
what I'm saying. And
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. I enjoyed this scene because again, we get to see Dina and Ellie's relationship dynamic and what their strong suits are, what their weak points are. But I do agree with some of the criticisms about Ellie's, maybe I don't know if mood is even the word, but the fact that like I personally feel like the Dina and Ellie fight that we get in the video game when Ellie finds out that Dina is pregnant is really important and useful and goes a long way in terms of like, there's going to be strife, especially in a
Mhm.
stressful mission like this. And I do feel like that we're missing that particular element, and we'll probably talk more about it when we get the conversation between Ellie and Dina when they're kind of setting out on the mission. But yeah, it's sometimes it feels a little too like happy times going on a fun
Mhm.
little mission, and
Yeah.
and sometimes it's going to feel that way because you can't be doom and gloom 24/7. You have to make levity in certain situations. But yeah, I do think we are kind of missing a little bit of the Ellie now feels like Dina is a little bit of a burden, and Dina feels like a little bit of a burden and feels like she's
Mhm.
not really strong enough at the current moment in terms of, her health to go on this journey with Ellie. And I think it's an important aspect that we are kind of missing in the
Yeah.
adaptation.
Yeah, and this is where I kind of like would say about it being a little bit unfair, because I think a scene like this is possibly necessary to show the complexity of everything, but it just adds to this ongoing snowball. That is the fundamental problem, is that Ellie should be a little bit more like there should be some suffering going on here. Like Ellie should be at this point kind of destroying herself mentally because she is in pursuit of this, and we should see some cost going on. And I don't think we're seeing enough cost happening, whether it be in
Yeah.
the relationship, her mental state, her physicality. That's not being translated. Thus far, it's been quite peachy, and a little bit too peachy for what is meant to be a very dire situation. And
Mhm.
I wonder if it's because they're really trying to like portray that they are in amongst their head, and they're not going to realize it until things get too bad, which happens towards the end of this episode. And maybe that's what they were going for, but I don't think that's hit in the slightest, and this scene doesn't help it, despite the fact that me as a player wants to see it, because I want the exploration of kind of, well, what did they do when it was just when they weren't talking about this 24/7. Like,
Mhm.
what was life like normally? Well, what was normal in this whole situation? So yeah, it's a difficult one to kind of thread, and I think it's a tough situation that they put themselves into as writers.
If I ever were to lose you.
Alas, we still get some of the sentimental moments. We do still get some of the emotion hitting as Eddie goes exploring through the theatre, finds a stage which is set up with all of the equipment, and of course finds a guitar and strums away and sings an opening line of a song that was released several years after this pandemic hit in this timeline. We're throwing timelines out the window. Neil Druckmann and Craig Mason have said they don't care about the continuity with the real world. This song has significance, and their change doesn't matter that much. It can be thrown in I think if you find this jarring enough to be like, oh, literally unwatchable, I mean, you're looking for excuses not to watch the show. So,
Yeah.
but it's so beautiful to have this like Eddie reflecting on this particular line in this song and clearly it harkening back to something. We don't know what yet, but it's harkening back to something there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for show only watchers, we won't spoil anything, but this is a very significant song. So, in my opinion, if you're literally like Googling this song to see when it came out, just to be upset that it is like anachronistic, get out of here. You know, like who
Mm-hmm.
cares? It's about the emotional gut punch of it. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Unfortunately, Dina interrupts it when she comes in saying that yeah, there's this warehouse. I have a plan. And so we're gonna get right back down to business, unfortunately. But the theater was beautiful, a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
set. So I was really happy to see that.
Apparently real theater as well, one that they scouted. They weren't allowed to mess it up too much, and they had to be quite protective. So like there are certain like the balcony and other places
Mhm.
that are like actual sets, but the theater exists in the real world in Vancouver, I believe. It's possible to go there. We could go there, field trip. But
It's a really
I
long
love
field trip for you.
it really is. But but Craig Mazin also said like there's an attention to detail with some of these sets that they've built as well. In that, like the carpet is the exact same one from the video game. Because
Yes.
as he said in the podcast, he was like, if you're gonna have the carpet from like if you're gonna have to create carpet, let's create carpet in the exact same way as the video game because why
Mhm.
not? It's what that HBO budget goes on, and I love it. I love these little touches of detail that are necessary.
How did you get to Jackson?
Doesn't matter. This is what matters. Whatever reason Joel gave those people to do what they did, he didn't deserve that. And I think, what if I hadn't snuck out? What if my mom and sister were beaten to death in front of me? What if that motherfucker made me watch as he did it? Would it make a difference if my family had hurt his people first? No. No. And if I hadn't killed him, if he had gotten away, I promise you, I would have hunted him down forever. Forever.
But we get them going out onto the road, and this is something that I found a little jarring. Talking very loudly in the open street,
Why?
guns in
Yeah.
hand. Again, like maybe this is to show that they are in over their head and they're being really naive, and they've got to where they are just on pure luck at this point. But this seemed like a really dumb thing to do.
Yeah, they're walking kind of out in the open, which again, like if they think no one's around, okay, but also they're talking so loudly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this scene, is really interesting because it is like a bit of a diversion from the game in which Dina is telling Ellie about her first kill after we had that previous scene with Ellie talking about not really her first kill, but one of her first kills. And we get a little bit of Dina backstory here where she was living somewhere else out in like a very small cabin in a very remote area. She always wanted to go outside, but her mom and her sister never let her. And I think we get a little bit of like, this feels like a little bit of Ellie, right? Like a little rebellious streak where Dina decides she's going to go out on her own anyway, brings a gun with her. And unfortunately, when she returns, there's a raider who has attacked her sister and mother and kills them, and Dina shoots and kills the guy. And again, like I don't mind this story. I think anyone who's alive at this point in this world has some sort of real bad trauma in their past.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about the fact that they're like saying the story so loudly. And like we get the Dina saying to Ellie, like, it's your decision, right? Like, it's your decision whether or not I go with you. All I know is Joel didn't deserve what happened to him. And I can't even imagine a world where I was forced to watch my sister and mother get beaten to death. And so that this kind of colors a little bit of like why Dina is on this journey with Ellie beyond the romantic feelings and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know. It kind of worked for me. Like, again, I enjoyed the Dina backstory aspect. I felt like, okay, this makes sense. You know, in the video game, she does have a sister. There's a little bit more of it told in terms of like her faith and Judaism. We haven't seen that in the video game or in the show. I don't know that we're going to, but
Don't think so.
I think they maybe won't go into it. But I don't know. I don't know if it was because Dina putting it on Ellie, right? And Ellie just has this look on her face, and all credit to Bella Ramsey because something in Ellie's eyes is just like pure exhaustion, is how it read to me. How did this scene work for you? Because I just feel so like on it, I guess.
I'm very different. I mean, aside from walking in the middle of the street and it being really open, I think that's just a dumb thing, but it's just poor framing, but can be explained by, again, poor decision making on the character's part. So I'm willing to kind of like set that aside. As for the story itself, I thought this was brilliant in the way in which it really set up Dina's POV of just there being a moral absolute to this, in that I don't care who did this first or who did this. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, would it make a difference if my family had hurt his people first? No. Like, there's just a full line of just no. That doesn't matter. What happened there was abhorrent and should never be done, regardless of any justification. I think Dina is very much affected by what has happened so much, and it's so sad to think that not only did she experience that, like she may not have witnessed the event itself, but she was there. She was like she witnessed like everything up to a point, and then had to deal with the emotional fallout afterwards of like coming to consciousness. Um, Losing someone that she was incredibly close to as well, and knowing what had happened to him, and then having to frame that grief with grief that she has held since she was 8 years old. And if you
Mhm.
think about like the whole dynamic of that, is that like the only people that she has to depend upon are her mother and her sister, who are now dead, and that she has shot the killer. And so an 8-year-old is on their own in a cabin north of Santa Fe. Like,
Yeah.
crikey. There's so much that's not said in this whole setup of how much Dina has gone through. And it explains so much to the humor, I think, of everything, because I think absolutely Dina is someone that masks everything. I don't think really we see the true emotions of Dina until this scene right here, in terms of
Mhm.
how she's actually feeling about this. And like she's harboring a massive amount of grief. And so I think that this was an incredibly necessary scene to really explain why she's willing to go as far as she is with this whole endeavor, while also reconciling the fact that she is now pregnant and that she has
Mhm.
duty for protection of something else. Yes, okay, it comes much further down the line and probably doesn't quite feel real yet because she's not quite showing and she's just feeling nausea at the moment, and it's the knowledge that something's in there. But I mean, I can't speak for someone that, I mean, I can't speak for anyone having a baby, but like I imagine that it doesn't quite feel as present yet, and so there is more of a
Mhm.
kind of like less of that pull in that kind of sense. But still, it's enough of a pull in the other direction, because she's like, I feel this so much, and this is what justifies that. Because we had this same argument with Tommy of like, well, how can you justify Tommy leaving when he's got a kid at home? Similar justification needs to be thrown towards Dina here, and I think this is what does it: is that you see how traumatized from everything that she is, and how
Mhm.
she feels so strongly about it. So for me, it hit really well. I just don't like the setting of it. I think that's my
That's
one
fair.
gripe.
And I think honestly part of me not being sure how I feel about it, I think still just comes back to the fact where I'm like, but we miss Ellie saying you're a burden, right? Like we missed
Mhm.
out on that entire thing. And so I
Yeah.
feel like now we've missed a few steps, we've skipped some steps and gone on to the point where Ellie's like, okay, no, yeah, we will go together. And in this same scene, this is when they come upon the dead Seraphites, the prophet mural that we mentioned a little bit earlier with the feel her love message below. And again, this is in tandem with the TV station that we experienced last episode, is like, who are we messing with? Like, what have we stepped into? Like, what is this war that we have now put ourselves in the middle of?
What the fuck is wrong with Seattle?
Exactly. And yeah, I love the mural. It's straight from the video game. I think they do such a great job, and it does kind of look like Hanrahan, so there's still hope.
It does. I just the brutality of it as well. Like that they put up that mural and like quite clearly, I mean, even with the way in which the mural's done, I'm looking at it now, and like the brickwork all around it is grubby as hell. So they've like cleaned it and they've painted it, and like a lot of like effort has gone into it, and it's clearly something of pride. And yet they pile up dead people below it and then graffiti underneath, feel this bitch. Like holy hell. Like you get a sense of how disrespectful this whole scenario is. And it again, when we see what happened in the TV station, we perhaps get an understanding of why. We get like, because when you see your friends strung up and their innards are like played out, perhaps that might evoke strong feelings like that. And it's again, I think to give some credence back to the writing of the whole situation, it's quite good to have this, which then prompts the Dina conversation. And you talk about like kind of, which, because she's there looking at this and perhaps is outraged as to how it's got this far and how an eye for an eye doesn't necessarily kind of mean it, and it does cut it off. But she's going in pursuit of an eye for an eye, and so it's quite funny that people are very kind of blinkered in terms of their biases as to what is a moral absolute and what isn't. It's very funny how that becomes quite objective when it's to yourself, but is absolute for everyone else. I thought that was very, very interesting. And yeah, it does look like Hanrahan. I'm still sticking. I think you really have nailed on something there, and I'm going to hold on to it.
I'll be so happy. You have no idea how cocky I will be if that actually ends up being true. Like, my head will not fit through doorways because I will just be so proud of myself. My arm is going to be tired from just patting myself on the back.
I mean, we'll be putting up murals to you. Like you'll be the new prophet.
Feel her love. Feel how right she is.
If it gets bad and we have to make a choice between shooting or running, we run.
Last resort. I got it. Oh, you think that no matter what happens, I'm just gonna start firing?
Literally every single time, yes. Don't get angry. You're a little crazy, and that's exciting. That's one of the reasons I love you. But I do want to make it out of here.
You love me?
We then get on to the warehouse and possibly the scariest scene that I think we've ever experienced in this show. For me, I was on the edge of my seat watching this. This was horrific. What were your thoughts when this was going on, Jess?
Yeah, my thoughts on stalkers hasn't changed. I hate them. I always hated playing the game with them because they're terrifying. If the loud ones, right, the bloaters, those aren't as scary because I see them coming. I hear them coming. Stalkers, absolutely not. And the fact that it almost feels like a scary movie where it's like a person looks at a thing and then like looks away to talk to someone, and then the next time they look back, the thing is closer. It was like that, except in this case, the stalkers are multiplying. There's more and there's more and there's more of them. And it's horrifying because Ellie also reveals to Dina, like, oh, hey, BT dubs, I did get bit by that stalker that one time. I just couldn't tell you because, the immunity thing. But yeah, it did bite me. And so they have to come up with a plan, and they come up with a plan very, very quickly because they're outnumbered. Like, I think in the after the show thing, they said something like 11 of them. Who knows if there are even more than that, but they had said something like 11 stalkers, which is versus the two of them is in a dimly lit warehouse, not great, especially because we made a plan, Ellie. Okay. We made a plan. Dina's plan was, hey, no guns. Cause if the WLF hears guns, they're going to know we're here and the jig will be up. So it's knives or we run, right, Ellie? Knives or we run, right, Ellie? Right? Ellie, this embodies who Ellie is, that it is like, yes, of course, I'm smart. No guns. First opportunity, gun is out, we're shooting bullets, you know? Like, this is who Ellie would be if not for Dina. And we're going to get to see more of that later in the hospital, right? What happens when Ellie is left to her own devices? Not saying you shouldn't shoot at the things that are trying to attack you. I'm just saying that all hell breaks loose and the plans fly out the window, you know? So this is terrifying. I hate their little spore antlers. Like, those freak me out the most, and I don't know why, but it's just like it's so creepy.
It was giving Yellow Jackets. It was Antler Queen.
Antler
and I was like,
Queen!
danger, get away.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really, really scary scene. But you know who's there to save the day, Stuart? You know who's there to save the day?
I thought we'd like try and escalate to get to this point as quickly as possible, because you've managed to last a good 35 plus minutes before Jesse is mentioned. Jesse
Savior.
comes in, knight in shining armor. With
He's
guns
such a paladin, I
blazing.
can.
Jesse comes to be the absolute third wheel, but like a big trike, he is the big wheel that is needed to, like, you know, pedal them the F out of here. Thank God for Jesse turning up, right? It was a little bit, it was a bit out of nowhere. I don't know how they could have done it, but I would have liked a little bit of foreshadowing.
You know how they could have done it? Like, they could have done it almost similarly to the video game. Okay, Dina is saying on this radio, they're saying everything. They're not holding back because we think that the Seraphites are maybe a little bit Amish, like they reject technology, so they feel that they can say whatever they want. Why couldn't we get, hey, do you see there's a person on their own in this specific location? And Dina says, that's a little weird. Like, that takes 2 seconds, fits into an existing scene, and doesn't have it be so jarring. Honestly, Stuart, I think they did this on purpose because, as they said in the after show thing, the moment when Jesse steps in and Ellie just sees like almost like just his silhouette, I think we're supposed to be like, Joel? Like, I think that's the intention. But like,
I like that being for Ellie, but not for us. Like, because we know he's dead. Like, this isn't a supernatural show. Like, it's a sci-fi show in a stretcher, but it's still grounded in a sense of reality. And if Joel comes back, even like a force ghost or something like that, it'd be so hokey and awful. And I don't even want it alluded to. Like, I would love it if we got that as an audience with that hints, like over the radio, like a sighting or a campfire or anything. Like, even in the game, because Tommy goes first, like, you see Tommy's campfires dotted around in the areas that you can explore. You know that he's ahead of you. You can follow the trail. You can do a similar thing, even though they're in pursuit, of just saying, well, like, have them approach from a different area and have a sighting, like mentioned. And that can be something that we pick up on as an audience, but those two are clueless to, because they're not focused on hearing it.
And it could be an Easter egg for video game players only. You know what I mean? Like, there's a way to do it that is very Easter eggy that I think would have worked perfectly. I will say it didn't really bother me that Jesse just shows up. I mean, it tracks with like, okay, he was at the theater, he saw their map, he was able to figure out where they were going. That all tracks. You know, how did you feel about the fact that, because we see Ellie kind of say to Dina, you go in the cage, you can't be bit, I can. Again, I will point out, Ellie, that as Tess said, you could still be torn apart. Like, this is still a thing that could happen to you. Did you feel like they showed Ellie and Dina being a little bit less capable than I think we've seen them in the past? Maybe, like, did they get overwhelmed too quickly for you? Or was this a situation, it's like, well, the first time I go through any scene in this video game, I die a couple times before I get the hang of it, you know?
There was a bit of that. It was very much like, oh God, am I on the right difficulty here?
Yeah, you hear that noise, the like, like that noise of like, you've died and you get to restart again.
Gosh,
my
no.
dreams.
Yes. I think it worked for me in terms of them getting overwhelmed as quickly as they did, because this is the point where it boils over. Like, this is the holy shit moment that they haven't had up until now, because everything has been peachy. And I think this is entirely what they were going for in terms of vibe, is that they are meant to reach a point where everything is like, oh gosh, we've underestimated this massively. and we are so ill-equipped for this. And this is the point where it really gets scary. I think what doesn't work for me in that is I would like to linger in this point. I would like them to suffer a little bit and reap, like, have a problem that comes about from this. Like, one of them should lose something, like whether it be like items, a scar, or something. Not just have Jesse turn up and save the day. For
I
me, I
didn't need
don't feel
Ellie
like
getting
they're
bit again. I will say that. Like
no,
that would like,
oh.
please God, no, not again.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I guess there is a slight cost because we do get a bit of conflict with Jesse, and there's a cost of the relationship. But that's a cost that comes from a decision that was taken before. I feel like there's not enough debt being paid for the stupid decisions that they are making.
Hmm.
And until that happens, I'm going to be very kind of unsatisfied as a watcher because I'm like, I want there to be actions and reactions. I don't want things to just happen and we gloss over them because it's TV. We kind of get over that.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, because the Jesse turning up out of nowhere, I feel like it's justified. Like, Jesse is an incredibly kind of like he is the head of their patrolling things. So I would imagine he's quite good at tracking, survival, and the skills that are necessary. Him and Tommy together are probably an absolute tour de force of when it comes to this kind of stuff. What with Tommy's training in the army and also his experience with the Fireflies. So everything there is like fully justified to me. But it's just the fact that he turns up with no clue that he's even on the way. So like for me, it's more of a narrative problem than a justification problem in that sense. But like, yeah, I wish that I don't know, like, like even they don't feel beaten up in the slightest. I feel like they
Yeah,
should
I
be
suppose. I guess
suffering.
that. Well, Dina's gonna suffer in a couple minutes, I guess.
Well,
um,
yeah,
so there's that. I don't disagree with you, right? Like this is an extremely dangerous mission. They should be getting a little bit more beat up. Like Dina's hair shouldn't look so clean. I get it. I get it. It didn't particularly bother me. Honestly, like the thing that bothered me more, which is just like this is how they're going about getting Jesse and Tommy included in the storyline, is that like I tend to push back against the like damsels in distress sort of
mhm,
storylines when they're presented on television because it's not my
yeah,
favorite thing, especially when we know Dina and Ellie are very capable. So that kind of stinks, but also I get it. Like if this is how we're getting introducing Jesse into the story and getting these three in the same location, it doesn't bother me a ton. But it's more the damsel in distress thing that always gets under my skin in just the way that like it's just a thing I get tired of seeing is all. But
yeah.
it's
I
necessary here, right? Like so it's whatever.
Yeah, and I think there's a slight justification. And like, tell me off if I am being a guy coming in and going, "Oh, I don't think it's necessarily a damsel in distress thing." But like, I feel like Jesse at least turning up with the ability to save them in this sense isn't too much down to their failings as women. I think it's down to them being ill
Oh yeah.
prepared because they ran out without support. Whereas at least Jesse and Tommy perhaps prepared a little bit more, brought weapons, and just have the benefits of having the jump on these stalkers who are actively attacking. Like they've gone for the prey, and therefore
Right.
Jesse sees an opportunity to like pounce it, I guess. But I totally get what you mean. And like it doesn't
It's a
really sit
vibe
very well
thing.
to have a guy turn
Especially
up and
because
suddenly
like
fix all the problems. Yeah.
I love Jesse's arms. Like I will never say don't have Jesse have those arms. But it's just like, oh, a big burly man comes in and saves the
Hmm.
day, and then in the very next scene is like chastising them. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like it is what it is. I still very much love Jesse. It's just yeah, it's a very very weird, tiny thing. But this scene
Yeah.
overall was just it was a lot. Like it was
Yeah.
really well done. The stalkers are always really scary. I'm really
Perfect.
happy they included them a second time. It makes the setup in the beginning of the season even better now on retrospect that like we're introduced to these earlier on. And then we see that like they're not just there. They're more in more than one location. So yeah, love that.
Hmm. It lends itself to a lot of like kind of theories, I guess, because what with the mycelium and the tendrils like spanning miles, as I believe Tess outlined in like the in season one, is that perhaps spores are elsewhere. Maybe they're not just localized to Seattle. Maybe there are like spreading and they're evolving all over the place. Because what with the stalkers being both in Jackson and in Seattle, you'd imagine that this evolution is spreading elsewhere and it isn't just localized, which lends itself to a lot of, oh crap, like what other things could be out there in terms of what could be set up and stuff, which is really, really, really cool. The fact that Jesse turns up and becomes a third wheel, particularly after a conversation where Dina says "I love you," was hilarious to me.
Oh
And I
my
also think the way
God.
in which Dina does say that she loves Ellie, it was just so perfectly them. Like the whole thing of where is the line? It's like, yeah,
It's
Ellie
like,
goes,
I love you,
"Oh,
but you're crazy.
yeah, literally every single time. Don't get angry. You're just a little crazy. And that's exciting. It's one of the reasons I love you," which is so honest and true. Oh, it's perfect for them. And then
Yeah.
Jesse turning up after that admission. Oh, the drama.
So awkward. Not only that, Dina's freaking pregnant with his baby. You know, like, yikes. Big time yikes.
Big time yikes.
That's true. Like, oh, ex-boyfriend whose child I'm carrying. Meet my new girlfriend. We just had sex for the first time. Hey, I just told her I loved her 5 minutes ago. That's super awkward.
Jesse,
What?
how did you find us?
The map you left in the theater. Impressive triangulation, by the way.
Thanks, that was old Dina.
Trust me, I didn't think it was you.
How did you find the theater?
Do I look like I want to fucking talk to you right now?
You came alone?
No. Me and Tommy. We split up when we got to the city. Cover more ground.
I can't believe they sent you after us.
They didn't. But you two were gonna die out here. So we snuck out the next night. It's a good thing we did.
You know what would have been pretty fucking good up
Up until what?
Till we weren't.
They get out and they run away. Bit of gunfire with the wolves as they are getting away. And to fully try and lose them, they run into the park and we get the Seraphites as they are meant to be seen. We get
Yes.
flame in hand, running through forestry and being scary AF. For me, this hit so well. I could have forgone the previous introduction to the Seraphites where we kind of got the humanization of them, because I think this would have hit a little bit more, because the moment that whistling starts, you're like, what the hell is that? But you know what it is if you're a TV watcher. And so
Yeah.
like there is that kind of like you lose that whole sense of, oh, what is this, and like what the tension
Yeah.
is. And I'm like, dial it up to 100, guys. Like, stop holding back by teasing everything and foreshadowing everything. I'm like, no, hold some things back and give us a surprise.
Interesting. Because I think I disagree, just because I like that we have Ellie and Dina thinking one thing, which is, wow, these wolves are awful. They killed a kid, right? Like it's furthering their own narrative in their minds of how bad the WLF is. Then to stumble into Seattle and like come across the TV station where it's like, wait a minute. Like, what are these people up to? I really do like the breadcrumbing of that. I agree that obviously this scene packs a harder punch, because in the video game, this is how you discover the Seraphites, is the whistling, and you're like, the hell is going on? And then there's torchlight, and then there's arrows, and it becomes a mechanic in the game where you have to remove arrows from your body, right? Like that is a thing. So I do agree with you. I think we would get more surprise, shock, awe if we didn't already know who the Seraphites were. But I like the narrative juice that we get from introducing them earlier. And Ellie and Dina kind of having to realign their own mindsets with the WLF and the Seraphites and realizing they're both bad. Like, that's the answer. It's not good guy, bad guy. It's both bad guy. So I did like that, but because I don't think it makes this scene any less harrowing. Like, it's terrifying to all of a sudden have these just torchlights just coming up. They're communicating through whistles. You're hearing arrows just flying through the air. And then all of a sudden, freaking Dina gets hit. And not only that, Stuart, but we get the distinct pleasure of watching them cut out some dude's entrails, and we know, Stuart, that they now did this one by one at the TV station. That's how they did. It is brutal. You're nested in sin. Like, it's so creepy. It's awful. It's so creepy.
Yeah, they nailed that vibe perfectly. And the way in which you're having to confront, like, I agree with you. I appreciate the setup in one aspect, because you do have to reconcile this belief of what they were like with what they are being presented like now, and you're like, are these the same people? Are these different people? Who knows? And then yeah, nested in sin, and they slice down, and it's so brutal. Like when you're playing the game, like it feels farther away, like you don't get a close-up shot of it because it's very much in your perspective as the character you're playing. And so quite rightly, you stay a distance away from anything like that appearing. But let's say the benefits of TV, we get like a good close-up shot of this, and it's horrid. Like the way in which not
Yeah.
only did they like hook it in, but it was the lifting of them while they were hanging them that did the actual grim. Nightmare fuel.
And there's some,
Nightmare fuel.
what are these things? The crescent thing. What are those called?
Little
Scythe?
sickle.
Little sickle. That's it. A
scythe
sickle.
thing.
I don't know what it is about that particular weapon, but it's scarier than other weapons. I don't know if it's the curvature. I don't know if it's the idea that you could like hook someone in. I don't know what it is, but it's terrifying, especially when that guy like twirls it on the stump. Like he's like so
Oh, yeah.
menacing about it. It's horrifying. And of course, all of this is happening while Jesse is trying to be like, chastising them for leaving and saying him and Tommy left the very next day to follow them. And they say, we're going to regroup at the theater and then we're going to go home. And of course, Ellie wants to push back because she doesn't want to go home. Like they're already
Yeah.
here. They came here with a purpose and they want to fulfill that purpose, even though it is very obvious to everyone else at this point that they have stepped into a war that they were totally unprepared for.
Mhm. I love the fact that Jesse does clap back to Ellie like quite significantly in this whole scene. Like when they're asking the questions, he's like, "Do I look like I want to talk to you right now?" Like snaps off completely. And if it wasn't for like Dina asking a more kind of personal question of just like, "Did you come?" like checking on Jesse's welfare, that he warms back up and they get a little bit more information teased out. But then he claps back again when Ellie kind of pushes back, and she's like, "We were doing pretty good up until," and he's like, "Up until what?" Because he has to point out, like, you were not doing good when I met you just then. Like, if it wasn't for Jesse turning up, they would be dead. And so, like, I thought it was so great. And this is the cost that I want to see. I want to see stuff like this happening, which is where actions have consequences, and they're like, and I feel like this cost is meant to cover a lot of things. And for me, I think it's like it doesn't quite settle the debts that I feel that has been accumulated by Ellie and Dina and this whole thing. But I appreciated Jesse like doing such force, and it not just being this peachy reunion where they're like, "Oh yeah, Jesse's here. We've got more numbers. We can go kill Abby." It's like, no, Jesse's here to evac you, and if you don't listen, you're going to have a world of pain
Yeah.
here, because he and Tommy have sacrificed so much. Like, if you consider what they have sacrificed, because he even says that like they snuck out, they went against the council as well, and you've got to consider that both of them are high-ranking people on the council. Jesse is just newly elected. There's no way Jesse is going back and being like in a position of trust anymore. That's what he sacrificed for these
Yeah.
two, because he loves them so dearly. And there's such a lack of appreciation for that from Ellie in that situation, because she's blinded by the revenge mission that she's on.
Yeah.
That was some
Yeah.
good juice.
It was. And I think this is 1000% in line with who Jesse is as a character, who they've told us he is, right? Like he is a rule follower. He cares about procedure and just like following the order of things. And so for him to defy those rules, that's huge. Especially like you were saying, Tommy has a kid, Tommy's on council. So is Jesse now. Both of them have sacrificed so much to rescue Dina and Ellie. And so to be met with the like, we were doing fine before you showed up. And of course he's going to push back on that because they weren't. And it's not just that he doesn't even know Dina's carrying his child. He knows that he loved Dina once upon a time, that they were a couple for a very long time. Even if they were on and off again, they still have a history there. Ellie and Jesse are really good friends, right? Like, there's a reason he came out here to get them. And I think that like Ellie pushing back against wanting to leave, of course, is going to set him off in a way, especially when he literally just saved their lives. So, and I loved, again, this I thought worked so well. because we've talked about how is this going to work with Dina going with Ellie, right? Like are we still going to get the hospital scene with Nora with Ellie alone? Like how is all of that going to play out? I thought it was perfect to have Dina takes an arrow to the leg. It's very obvious Jesse is going to be the one to pick her up, bring her back to the theater, and Ellie, of course, as always, is going to say, I'll draw them away from you. You know what I mean? Get Dina safe. I will, because she kind of failed in protecting Dina literally in that warehouse a few minutes ago. So of course she's now going to take this opportunity to be like, okay, we can both rescue Dina here. You can carry her. I can get the others away from you all. So I really thought this worked super, super well in terms of getting Ellie alone like she needs to be for this whole thing to play out.
And it's really interesting that you mentioned the topic of failure, because that came up in the official podcast as well. As they mentioned, obviously a theme of last season was Joel persistently failing in the protection of Ellie, and it's Ellie doing so persistently with Dina here. And the way in which they mirror each other is entirely intentional by them, and the theme that they kind of really wanted to push. I imagine more so after like Pedro really kind of like nailed it with that improv in the Jackson episode in last season as well. Like, I feel like I'm failing. So good. And to see it mirrored in Ellie's actions here, and to have that harken back to the Gale line of walking down the same path, like you mentioned earlier, is just that's the theme being kind of woven in through this entire thing that I love so much, because it's like I feel I can quibble with certain choices about like the operations of things and like kind of the practicality of certain things, but they are nailing theme. That's the one thing you can't deny with this.
Oh
is
yeah.
They are absolutely hitting that. Then we get them departing. Ellie, in pure Ellie fashion, does a Joel, goes in kind of almost like defender mode, and it's like, right, I'll lure them away. You take Dina back and like protect her, and does so successfully, but in doing so finds herself alone close to the hospital.
Don't you know what he did? I don't care. You don't care. He killed everyone in that hospital, including the only fucking person alive that can make a cure from you. That was Abby's father. And Joel shot him in the head. That's what he did. I know.
I mean, it's just a short trip, Jess. Like, why not, right?
This
Two
is what
birds with one stone?
happens when Ellie doesn't have Dina. Okay, she doesn't think clearly, and this worked for me. I'm like, I'm getting on Ellie's case because it's poor decision making, but like, I love this from the show. This makes all the sense in the world that Ellie is, impulsive, reckless, and fueled by revenge. And so when Dina is out of her sight and in her mind, Jesse is the one who will take care of Dina. I can't be focused on Dina got shot with an arrow. Jesse's capable of handling that. Ellie is able to then shift her focus back to the mission at hand, which is finding and killing Abby. And the hospital is one step towards that. So of course, she is then going to take that opportunity, seize it with both hands, even though it's a terrible idea to go. You don't even know what you're up against. And going at it alone, without someone who keeps you in check with you is so supremely dangerous. But it's so delicious. This entire sequence of events is so perfect. Stuart, I couldn't help myself. I had to watch the video game version of it today because I really want to see like how one-to-one it is, like how close it gets to the actual thing. It's so well done. I love this hospital chase sequence.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's really, really faithful to it. Obviously, it's much more condensed. We don't get a bit of a slight John McClane moment of like crawling through the air ducts.
Like whatever, who cares?
But you get the pursuit of a dog following a trail as you sneak through like small gaps. I thought it was really funny when they were like, "Oh, it must have been like a critter or something." For one
of the
thing, the word
Critical Role
critter,
aspect. Yeah.
critical role, but also the fact that like Ellie is tiny and like no
Can't
one would
imagine
think that
it's
someone so
anything other than
small
an
is a
animal.
threat.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's like so
And
silly.
and like you said, even like a tiny moment with showing like how smart these people are, that they use dogs to help them track things,
Yeah.
like a huge component in the game, which I of course hated with of a passion, of a fire. Like, just I hate it because I don't like any harm to animals. Hurts my heart. So that was very difficult in the game, but I like that they included it in terms of world building for the show. Makes a
Yeah.
whole ton of sense.
Yeah, I think they just nailed this, and the fact that I think they even nailed it from the opening of the like setup of this whole scene where Ellie's like rushing through the woods and just clocks eyes on just this gap in the forestry, sees the hospital, and it's just there's a look that Bella Ramsey gives, which is just like they're possessed, like they are just fixated on this, and it's almost as if like something just overcomes them and they go in pursuit of it, and it's just so great in how they absolutely will just be relentless with this whole situation. I like the fact that the hospital had more use in the game. Obviously they're evacuating or they're like grabbing supplies because they're preparing for something. In this it's actually seemingly being used with active patients, which I think is really good for incorporating more numbers being there, but less soldiers, perhaps as well, which explains maybe kind of why it's a bit easier to get into. Because before it's like it's a full-on military evacuation of like get materials, and I like the fact that we just get straight down to it. We get straight onto the confrontation. We get Ellie approaching and just like straight up just addresses it. Nora so evil and like just tries to almost win Ellie over a little bit, but then doesn't. Like, just goes, yeah, that bitch got what he deserved. Oh,
Oh,
I can't.
awful.
It's so great.
I didn't remember that Nora was like, I don't know. In my head, Nora was a little bit more bothered by what Abby did to Joel, like because I am thinking back to the show and the way the show has like all of the Salt Lake City crew kind of like looking at each other, right? When like Abby's doing what she's doing. So I had kind of forgotten that Nora is so just like cold about this whole thing, right? Like saying, "Oh, I still hear his screams at night." And you think, "Oh, she's like she feels bad about it." But then no, switches to like, "Yeah, that little bitch got what he deserved." And then the throwing of the bleach and the chasing through the hospital, right? Like, again, Ellie, maybe you can't be infected. You can be shot by a bullet. Like, she's chasing Nora, and Nora's just like, get her, ah! Right? Alerting everyone around to their presence. Again, thankfully, Ellie is quick and avoids all these bullets, but they have nowhere to go because everything is blockaded off. The only where to go is down through the elevator shaft. And we know what's down there because of the very first scene in the episode. And oh my God, this was so beautifully shot. The cordyceps taking over. Oh, I've been waiting for the scene, Stuart, where the infected blows like that super cool smoke ring, but it's like cordyceps. I've been waiting for that scene since we saw it in the trailer. Didn't disappoint. It was beautiful. And I think this gives us like a semi-clearer picture because we saw Leon specifically. It's like, okay, he looks like he's been here for a hot minute. This wasn't yesterday that cold open took place.
Yeah, it was stunning. Like it gave me like big HR Geiger from Alien vibes and like the set dressings of everything of just how you just let it cook and it will just evolve into something alien and but kind of still hauntingly beautiful in the same way. It was so stunning, and the entire time like this was in playing the game and knowing the show was coming up and just imagining what spores could look like in terms of how gorgeous they could kind of be, like these little motes that are just floating through the air, catching the light, very reminiscent of fireflies in a way as well, like which kind of all lends itself into the same kind of like visual branding of the show. It was it was so gratifying to see it, because I was like, this is what I've been wanting for this entire time. And to do that while also maintaining a pace, maintaining a certain level of anxiety along the whole way as to like what's going on, and as a gameplay and knowing that Nora is cooked and Ellie is not because of the whole situation, it was just so perfect. And I have no notes for this entire section, really. I think it's
No.
stunning.
I loved every part of it. It was both pretty faithful to the game and also just like so incredibly beautiful, and what a great way to introduce the spores to the show. And
Mhm.
I've quibbled, I've been annoyed with how many times Ellie has gotten bit and the fact that we couldn't have introduced this earlier, but if this is the result that we get, I can't be mad about it, because it was
Yeah.
so gorgeous. And to get the scene with Ellie and Nora, and like it's not word for word, it's not line for line the video game, but it is so close. Like it is so close to it where Nora says like, "Do you know what he did?" Like, and Ellie knows. Ellie knows. Like, this is a huge reveal for anyone who hasn't played the video game. Ellie knows what Joel did.
Mhm.
So she's still in pursuit of Abby. So like that should tell you something. What?
Yeah.
Remains to be seen. But Ellie is aware of what Joel did. Ellie is aware of all of the people that Joel killed, and she still wants to kill Abby, to the point where, like, she is so dead set on this revenge to the point that she will brutally torture Nora as Nora is already dying because she's
Mhm.
infected via the airborne spores. So I love, because it's a slightly different from the video game, but I didn't even care how Ellie comes across the pipe, because it is so similar to Abby just glancing over, seeing those
At the
golf
golf
clubs,
clubs. Mhm.
right? Like it is, and I don't think it can't even be a mistake that
No.
pipe has like a little curvy on the end, just like a golf club, right? Like it was so perfect, so perfect.
Mhm. I'm keen to get into your thoughts on the whole actual like conversation that goes on with Nora and Ellie and the whole thing, because very much like this is in keeping with kind of what we expect from the game and everything. But in terms of the morality of it all, because like previously I was talking about like Dina and the whole sense of like morality of like, well, that was objectively awful and that has to be punished. And yeah, seemingly Dina should recognize that the observance of that should be the line in which it stops. Like, you killing doesn't add to that, and like the grotesqueness of it all. And Nora in this articulates very much that, again, like similar to Dina, there is a moral line in which they kind of like adhere to, in that like what Joel did was absolutely abhorrent and shouldn't be done. And yet, what does Nora do? Nora flees for her own life and then lures Ellie towards spores, not by intention, perhaps, but at least also like tells people to like shoot her as well, knowing full well that that is the possible cure as well. It's so funny, and like I am really kind of drawing this from the official product because they really get into this. It's just like it's so interesting how they do throw out any sense of moral code or beliefs when it comes to self-preservation or the preservation of who they love, which again nails us back onto the whole thing of theme, is that they are just drilling
Mhm.
this in, is that love is a corrupting force and that it does dangerous things, and it like nature is brutal in that like that kind of like cordyceps does awful things. And to quote an awful person, it's what David says in last season, it's that like
Mhm.
cordyceps loves, and it's horrible to confront that. What were your kind of like thoughts on the whole Nora of it all? Like, did you find it to be a bit hypocritical? Did you find it to be kind of aligned, I guess, with the thought process that you would expect? Like,
I mean, yeah, I think most of the people are a bit hypocritical, right? Where
mm,
because they're doing the eye for an eye treatment of, well, Joel did this to our, and there are no more fireflies. That's Joel's fault. He did that. And Abby was simply taking revenge. It's like, okay, well, revenge begets revenge. And so now, this is what you're asking for. And she's refusing to give up Abby's location. Um, we don't know what, again, with the way the episode ends, we don't know if Ellie is able to get that information out of her, because we know it's not going to be super long until Nora is completely taken over, completely infected.
Mhm.
And Ellie is now prolonging that by just beating her, not dissimilarly to what Abby did to Joel. Obviously, Joel
Mhm.
wasn't infected at the time, but of course it's hypocritical, like, of course it is. And I just think it's so interesting because if we're taking Nora to be as close to Abby as like Ellie is to, maybe not like Joel or Dina, but maybe even like a Jesse or something like that, right? Where like they're friendly, they're not like family, but they're close.
Mhm.
Um, do we think Ellie would give up information on where Jesse is? No. Like, how far is Ellie going to have to go to get this
Mhm.
information, right? Like, how far is too far? Bella Ramsey also, like, oh my god, their eyes in this scene, like,
Yep.
just nothing, like, very much giving vibes of Joel in the hospital, of just
Yes.
nothing beyond there. It is
Completely
just,
dissociating from the whole situation and just compartmentalizing this aspect of their experience and be like, right, that will get filed away and we will never open that file ever again. Like, we just don't
yeah,
go there. Oh, yeah, it's so, so brutal. And it's the same look that was given when she saw the hospital. It's this same kind of like,
yep,
just pursuit. Like, it's just something that overtakes them. Oh,
yeah.
it's
And this is what
so
works
well
well for
done.
me. You know what I mean? Because as much as I'll quibble with like, Ellie didn't call Dina a burden, and like there's not this like strife between them that it feels like there should be, because we've said this before, and I'll never stop saying it. Like, Ellie is driven by revenge. That is the message, right? That should be
Mhm.
the message. That is Ellie's purpose. That is all she is focused on. She's laser focused, has blinders on in many respects. She should be at least annoyed with Dina, like with the pregnancy stuff, and not even necessarily with Dina, but like with the situation. And a lot
Yeah.
of times, like, you're going to tell me there aren't times when you're annoyed with a situation and it's not your partner's fault. No way in shape or form is it their fault. You still take it out on them sometimes. Like, it happens in relationships, Like, if you say you don't, you're lying. So it just
Mhm.
like but this was done so perfectly, because this is exactly who Ellie is. And we're not
Yeah.
supposed to, you're supposed to want to look away. You're supposed to want to be like, ooh, Ellie, that's a lot. Like, ooh, that's, can I root for her? That you're supposed to feel that way, because what she's doing is awful. Like, how is what
Mhm.
she's doing different to what Abby did? It's not really. And I think we're supposed to feel that. And so the way that this all played out with Nora, like, you know, refusing to give up information on Abby's whereabouts, and Ellie taking a pipe and just beating the crap out of her, like, chef's kiss. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful.
Mhm.
The red lights, it was everything. They nailed it.
Hey, kiddo.
Hi.
And then after nailing it, they go and twist the knife even further by giving us a flashback. They give us Ellie waking up on what seems to be a very lovely day as Joel walks in through the doorway and just says, "Hey, kiddo."
I can't wait. I really enjoyed this episode, don't get me wrong, but like on that ending, I was immediately like, give me the next episode or
Mhm.
else. Like, I'm so excited to get the flashback, get all this flashback stuff, which we know we're getting. If you've seen the
Yep.
preview, if you saw the way the episode ends, very obvious that this is not current day. So really excited to see Pedro Pascal back on my screen again.
I wonder if anyone's actually believing that this is present day and that Ellie is just woken up from a horrible nightmare.
Everyone would quit the show if that was
Awful.
the case.
That would be terrible. This was just so mean because like you're seeing Ellie at her worst, and then she wakes up and you're like, she's a kid again. Like, it's a season one Ellie, like
Yeah,
pure
she's
Ellie. That's
she's
like,
in her bedroom in Joel's house. So you know that this
mhm.
is pre them getting far, distance enough away from each other for her to want to move into the garage.
Yep,
So this is the happy times.
it is. But I suspect it may not be happy for the entirety because it's a full episode we have to go through. Now that we've kind of gone through the whole thing, thoughts on the episode as a whole, Jess? Still very much in the same mindset, like a bit good, bit bad. Like I think there's some quibbles here and there, but mostly
I'd say the vast
really good,
majority.
right?
I'm very high on this episode. I
Yeah.
think that we got a lot. We got some like character building moments. We got a lot of action sequences. We got some scary infected stuff. More
Mhm.
information on the Seraphites and the wolves. Right? Like I think this is a really great episode. And again, like another stepping stone. I'd say like 3/4 of the episode is like stepping stone to get Ellie to the hospital, and then we get that
Mhm.
final scene.
Yeah.
Obviously it's going to feel, with seeing what we saw at the end of this episode and seeing the previews for next episode, I think I'm curious to see how they're going to thread the needle with like immediately flashback stuff versus like, will it feel like the momentum has been broken? We'll see. But I really enjoyed this episode. It was harrowing. It was perfect. Yeah, really liked it. A few things I didn't like, but mostly I really liked it.
Yeah, same thing. I'm like, I've got a couple of quibbles which I've had, but like for the most part, this episode was fantastic. I think this is a massive step up from the last episode for me, in terms of my enjoyment of it. And I think that it's why we say and have to remind ourselves quite often is just let writers cook, like let creators cook, and just you may not appreciate the method in which they're cooking you a meal, but you'll appreciate it when it's served to you. And I think that you have to think of the whole thing in context. I would maybe feel safer with other certain decisions, like perhaps I don't know if they had done the Seraphite stuff a little bit more elegantly with how they introduced them. Maybe there was a whistle and a cutaway, and so there was still an ambiguity over whether or not that whistle was good, bad, warning, and so that it left you with a bit more kind of ambiguity in this episode. But these are very minor things, hugely minor things. I'm still coming away from each of these episodes just pining for the next, and more so for this episode in particular because they set you up with such a great hook for what is going to come next episode. I do, in terms of hopes for next episode, I do just hope that it isn't exclusively flashbacks. I hope that we don't depart entirely from this scene with Nora because, again, I keep saying this. I want costs to be settled. I want debts to be repaid, and I want to see what toll this has on Ellie. And I don't want it to go on too long before we actually get some exposure of that. Like I want to see the effects of everything happening. But I can only hope, and that will come next week. I think that brings us to the end of spoiler-free discussion. So if you're heading out at this stage, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider subscribing, leaving us a lovely review if you could be so kind, or dropping us any comments. We really do want to hear what you think, and any engagement really does help us out massively. But if you are still here and you're looking to dive a little deeper with us, where we get into the story with the full context of the season to come and the games, then stick around because spoilers from here on out. Next episode is gonna be a doozy. We know what's coming up. We know the museum's coming, and based on
the dinosaurs.
previews, we're getting the dinosaurs, we're getting the capsule, we're getting the gift. Oh, it's gonna be a great
I
one.
can't wait.
By all accounts of everyone that's had like screeners and previews, they've been like ranting about this and saying that this is one of the standout episodes. And it's directed by Neil Druckmann, who again I think we're in safe hands here in terms of like the source material. Oh,
I can't
before
wait.
Christmas. I can't wait for it.
I can't wait. The museum stuff is probably my favorite thing across both games. I'm a huge fan of dinosaurs, and getting to just live in a brief moment where Joel and Ellie are happy. There isn't as much strife between them, and they just are doing something fun. right? It doesn't happen a ton in the video games. So
Mhm.
I treasured that moment in the video game. And so I'm really excited to see it come to life on my screen, to have Pedro Pascal back. It's like it's been a minute since we've
Yep.
seen him. So I'll be really, really happy to see him and kind of have like a little bit of a breather before what I'm sure is going to be a heartbreaker of a finale. So yeah, I cannot wait. My biggest question is like, gosh, we've really gone a number of episodes without Abby. Like, obviously, she's always being mentioned. She's always like a topic of discussion in terms of that is the goal. But
Mhm.
like, for the people who aren't video game watchers or players and are just consuming the show, is it going to be a lot to now have another episode? Again, we don't know if we'll see Abby next episode. I just assume we don't because of all the flashback stuff we have to go through. But
Mhm.
like we're gonna spend most of the season not seeing Abby, right? Is that am I wrong? Is the last time you saw her episode 2 at the very like right? That's the last time.
Episode episode 2, yeah. So it's weird because we would I think we came away from the impression of everything that had been teased about this season. That is that our expectations were that we were going to get pretty much an Ellie focused season, but it was going to be fairly kind of like timeline kind of split where we're going to get like
Right.
a lot of the Abby stuff alongside it. But it's been very incredibly faithful to the game in the sense that like Abby appears, does the deed, and then buggers off, and then we don't see anything.
Yeah. The
I
reason
think
we
we're
thought
getting
that we would
that.
see more of her is because we got the Abby backstory at the very beginning of the season. So
Yeah.
we kind of thought, okay, they'll go in tandem, a little, a little Ellie, a little Abby, a little Ellie, a little Abby. I'm a little concerned, mostly because, and I do think they've done a great job at setting up Abby as being extremely revenge driven and like to a fault, right? Like we can't necessarily justify her actions. Therefore, hopefully people are watching with the understanding of like, okay, Abby and Ellie are quite similar in this way. And like maybe we
Mhm.
shouldn't deplore Abby so much. But I think it's a little tough to say that when we haven't seen her for a while, right? Like, is
Mhm.
it going to be tough when the finale comes around and then we're getting a ton of Abby? I don't know. I'm a little nervous that we haven't seen her since episode 2 and that like again, viewers only, watchers only of the show might be like, "Oh yeah, that's Abby." Like not that you could
Yeah.
forget, but like we haven't seen her for a while. You have to imagine, you have to make something with like a casual audience in mind for certain aspects.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm getting more of the belief that I think that we might not get Manny's death in this season. I think we're going to get it
Yeah,
next season, and I think because like I'm still of the belief that we're going to end with the whole and you wasted it and then cut to credits.
Jesse, yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna get Jesse's death, and I think that we're gonna get like we're gonna have Abby say, "You killed all my friends," and we go, "What?" And then we realize that there's a side of things that we haven't seen because it's not Ellie that kills Manny; it's Tommy that kills Manny with the sniper
Right, but
rifle.
are we gonna get Ellie killing Owen and Mel?
I think we're gonna get that.
Because we have to,
Yeah,
right? Like, I
you
think the
have to. It's the
pregnancy thing, we
inciting
have
incident.
to.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
means again we like because we're looking at the episode runtimes that we speculated on in our speculation podcast that have been very
Mhm.
accurate. So we're looking at about an hour runtime for like the next couple of episodes. Not
Yeah.
a lot of time to play with to get a
No.
fair bit done. So we're not doing cut Hillcrest. We're probably going to cut the whole like the
Finding
mall
Tommy
supermarket
thing.
kind of like thing. Yeah, like the boat
There's the
situation,
boat,
that's
yeah.
gonna get cut, I think,
Yeah,
completely
which is fine.
arcade as well. Exactly. I don't think we're gonna get the shootout as well with the monorail hanging over with the
Right.
Seraphite and WLF. So we're cutting out a lot of that stuff. So really the key beats that we have to hit are the aquarium,
Mhm.
the fallout from everything with Nora,
Right.
and then the confrontation, which actually really, when it condenses down, isn't that much. It's
No,
just
especially
more
when you
time
think
to
we're
let them
gonna
breathe.
right, especially when you think, okay, they're probably gonna spend a decent amount of time with Ellie, Owen, Mel, that whole thing. So it, yeah, it's going to be pretty expedited. I don't mind them cutting certain things that feel like, well, it's a video game, so we're going to have some like run and shoot and kill and, stab, those kinds of things. I don't mind those being cut. Yeah, it's just, I'm really interested to see, especially because Stuart, like, we didn't go back to Jackson at all. Like, I thought we may get to see Tommy and Jesse like making that decision to leave, and like, again, I still would love a scene with Maria and Tommy making that, having that discussion. That's fine. But we didn't. I don't think we're gonna. Like, if we were going to, I feel like we would have already gotten it. So yeah, we're cutting out some stuff. But I don't mind the way that they got Jesse and Tommy involved. I think it makes a lot of sense that they're gonna go after Dina and Ellie, and especially when Maria isn't the one who got them the supplies to do it, right? Because we're changing the order of operations here, where Tommy was the one to leave first in the video game. But I did love this spicy little bit of foreshadowing, Stuart, of Ellie and Dina leave the map at the theater, which is how Jesse finds them. And yikes, stop leaving maps places where people can find them.
So good to foreshadow that, and to show that they are forgetful in those little details when, I don't know, when they're just not thinking, I guess.
Well, especially because they make fun of the WLF, because they're like, oh, those idiots, they don't think anyone's listening. They're going to say whatever they want because no one's listening. Okay, well, maybe don't leave your maps just laying around, people. Just saying.
That's absolutely, they've absolutely set that up to have that hit, like, more so.
Yeah,
like,
did I say already what it's foreshadowing, that Ellie's going to leave the map at the aquarium? If we didn't explicitly say, for those who don't remember, Ellie leaves after she kills Mel and Owen, she leaves the map behind at the aquarium, which is what allows Abby to find Dina, Jesse, Tommy, all those people at the theater
so quickly. I think that's an incredible bit of foreshadowing, and not something that I picked up immediately, which is so, again, why watching these episodes a few times actually lends itself to a sort of really good watch. There was an Easter egg that your husband mentioned, which is in this episode that I don't think we got to in the thing, which is in the office. There's a little Mother's Day notice, a little card that's on one of the desks as well. Incredible spot. Like, I don't know how people find this stuff, but the timing of it was quite hilarious, considering it was released on Mother's Day in the US as well. Happy Mother's Day to any mothers out there listening, I guess. But
Happy Mother's Day, Dina.
Is this how you celebrate Mother's Day? As just potential pregnancy kind of like scaries in an awful environment?
What a way.
Is that, what a theme. Lovely. What a great way to celebrate. But there is so much to come up. Like, I think the leaving of the map is one thing. The establishing of what the Seraphites get up to, and the whole process of like having that done is just, if we get the Abbey scene, I'm gonna be so happy. Like,
we need to.
Stunning. Well, I mean, it has to be for the introduction of Lev and Yara,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That it is so important to introduce Lev specifically in that way, that we have to get that scene. And it's gorgeously lit and everything. Like, oh, I can't wait.
I can see that as being like a season 1 opener of episode 1 opener of season 3. Potentially.
If you think I lose my shit over Jesse's arms, I just wait until I talk about how much I love Lev as a character. Not that I'm like want to talk about Lev's arms, but like Lev is like an incredible character that I can't wait to talk about. And it's so hard to not talk about already. Like, it's like holding it back until season 3 is so tough, because I love Lev and the way they just change who Abby is as a character. Oh, I can't wait till season 3 to talk about Lev. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. But we're gonna have to wait so long until that comes out. That's gonna be ages. The other thing I really like the setup of is also the establishment of the spores and the way in which Leon was like embedded in them in the wall. I was like, wall stalkers. I think we're like getting the slow evolution of that. So I think it's a great way of establishing that that's not something like you see someone in a wall. It's not necessarily something to fear immediately, because they're fixed there. They're there for ages. So when one lunges out from that position, it's going to be such a shock. I really hope that they have done that intentionally, and that is the case of what it's going to be.
Yeah. We'll
Ooh,
see.
and
Oh,
also,
so good.
I mean, talking about setup for possible things in season 3. Basement level 3, B3.
Oh, there aren't
What's-
even rats down there. There aren't even, but aren't
What's
there?
down there?
Rat
Yeah.
King! If they do Rat King, we'll all die because we'll be too excited. It's going to be great. I remember playing the video game and people being very excited for me to get to Rat King. I actually handled it quite well. I don't think I died. I don't even know if I died once. Did I? I don't know. Either way.
I think we were all coaching you very much like from the sidelines, being like, just run, run,
Run!
run.
Molotov cocktails. Yeah. I'm really excited if they do Rat King. It would be so they had to have been like, oh, not even rats. Like wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
We're picking up what you're putting down over there. Yeah.
Mhm.
So exciting.
Gosh. Anything else on the spoilers, or do we think we've covered it all?
I think that's it. I'm gonna prepare the listeners, everyone. Next week, I am not gonna be able to contain my excitement, okay? Because dinosaurs will be on my screen and I love them. So I'm just warning you all right now. All right. I'm too excited. I can't wait.
Consider yourselves all warned. So before we wrap things up completely, should we channel a little bit of Will Livingston just to try and lift the mood a little bit? Jess, what did Nora say when the spores didn't work on Ellie?
Oh, well, I don't know. What?
This really blows.
Wow.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye bye.